Comic Book Savant Extra, Episode 2. Welcome back to Comic Book Savant Extra. I decided to actually do a second episode. Like I said, these are going to come, and there's no set schedule on when I do these little extra one-off episodes. It just is when certain things kind of hit me that are not covered in the main show, or something that came up that I thought will be a good kind of break off, or certain things that are more like news bits that come up that I actually come across that I want to talk about with you guys. So this past weekend, WonderCon was going on out in California. So I decided while I was watching YouTube over the weekend, DC does a really good job over the recent years where when they go to the major conventions like San Diego, WonderCon, New York Comic Con, that they'll stream their important panels that they'll do at the event. So I had a chance to check out the announcement or just DC news panel that they did announcing a lot of different things that they have coming down the pike for 2018 and going into 2019. So I decided to just jot some notes down and cover it in this kind of episode because a lot of things were interesting to me. Again, if you follow the podcast and follow the YouTube channel, I'm not your conventional comic book podcaster. I don't waste my time. Not necessarily wasting my time, but I don't necessarily focus on everything that's current because so many things change in the main lines especially for Marvel and DC. It's so many different events. I don't chase down all that stuff. A, I can't afford to, and B, I just don't have the time to keep current because it's just so many books that are being published. So I'm like super behind the loop, and I've just kind of been reading everything else but DC, which for no particular reason. I noticed that, and I actually even posted on in the Facebook group not even on the Facebook group. It was on the Facebook page for Comic Book Savant. I was posting this past weekend about what should I read, and I wanted to get back into the DC universe. I was like heavy into DC, reading the current books when the New 52 launched years ago, and I was like buying everything. I was like so interested at the time, and I was trying to read all the different things that interest me and actually try some different stuff to kind of expand my knowledge of the DCU, and I had a good time with it. And then after a while I kind of fell off. I kept buying books, but I just weren't reading them. So I have a massive backlog of DC comics to read. So I was putting it out there with the New 52. I literally had issues 1 through 21 or 1 through 22 of the Flash series from the New 52 that I hadn't read. I think I started reading the first, issue, and I never finished it and never continued on, but I kept buying it. And I did that with multiple books. But Flash, this was I think I'm kind of in the mood to read some Flash. I ended up actually reading some Image comic books instead. But, seeing this panel even sparked my interest more. Like, hey, I need to get back into the DC comics universe because it was so many different books and characters that I love. I love Batman. I love Green Lantern. I love Flash. And I've just gotten away from it. So I was intrigued by checking out this panel, and I was surprised by a lot of things that DC has going on. I've heard spatterings here and there, and I'm not super heavy in keeping up with comic news because, I read what I'm feeling in that particular moment. So I'll bounce around. I might read a DC comic, like an issue here and there of like Batman or like Batwing. It'll be totally random on just as I go through my Comixology account, and I'll look through, and I normally stop on the first thing that kind of catches my eye, and I'll start reading it. And I'm kind of one of those readers that, like, as I read, if the story grabs me, I'll read the next issue. And sometimes I'll just keep reading till I'll read through whatever I have, to that point. So I have to buy something else, and I'll kind of switch over to the next comic, and, I'll kind of go through there. So, everybody has their different, ways that they go about reading their comics. To me, it's like this totally random, and I've gotten to a point where, as a comic book reader and fan, certain times I used to feel like I had to force myself to read a certain comic at a certain time. Now I really go on feel because I enjoy it more, and I tend to read more in doing that. And I kind of told you guys, at the beginning of the year when I was talking about things that I wanted to do and bring more to the show, I wanted to get back to reading comics more because I felt like I kind of had gotten away from it and doing all the other stuff and covering all the different things like television shows and cartoons and the movies, that I didn't read as many comics. So I've done a great job adhering to that so far. 3, almost 4 months into the the new year, I feel like I've already read more comics so far this year than I read all of last year, which is good. And I'm I'm reading more and more as the days go by. But I digress. Back to the WonderCon panel that DC had. Now, they announced that they're rolling out different imprints or different lines within within the DC comic books umbrella. We have DC Zoom, that's middle grade friendly. They're middle grade friendly imprint that are for ages like 8 through 12. Then we have DC Ink, that's their young adult imprint. Then we have DC Black Label, which is more like their Elseworld. They're going to have a more dedicated like Elseworld imprint that people will release original graphic novels that are larger format, that the writers can just go free and kind of focus on like the core DC characters and telling the stories that these particular creators want to tell, not being bound by continuity in anything in a larger universe. They could tell these stories that they want to tell about the characters that they love. That's the imprint I think that caught my interest the most, and I'll go in a little bit later on some of the different projects they announced for each imprint. Then they're really bringing back Vertigo, which at the launch of the New 52, they kind of took the Vertigo characters, like the mainstay characters, and kind of folded them back into the DCU proper. But now they were kind of stepping away from Vertigo, but they're going back for and they had a few books left on Vertigo, but it wasn't the powerhouse that it was. A lot of books that really made Vertigo pop for so long kind of ended, and the Fables had went away for a while. What was some of the other bigger books? DMZ. It was just a lot of different books that Vertigo had going on. Hellblazer, Sandman, all those classic books that Vertigo kind of withered after the New 52 for a while, but they're reinvigorating the Vertigo imprint as well. And then you still got your DC universe, the DC universe proper that we all know and love. So they're trying some different things across the board. Vertigo's their creator-owned imprint that has been quite successful, over the years. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary this year, so they're really looking to reinvigorate that imprint and infuse a lot of new content through it. So just a quick rundown of some of the stuff that they announced during this panel. And they brought on they do a great job. They'll bring on different artists or writers for the particular books that are coming out, and they'll let them speak, give a brief, synopsis of what to expect from the new project that they're working on. So for DC Zoom, and again, this is the middle grade friendly 8 to 12-year-old imprint. They have Superman of Smallville that's going to be done by Franco and Art Balthazar. They did the really good Billy Batson Shazam series that was young, that was focused for young adult, that they did a few years ago. That was really fans really loved it. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but I heard so much positive things about it. They have also Green Lantern Legacy that's coming out. It's written by Min Lee. Then we have Batman Tales: Once Upon a Crime, written by Derek Frenos, and artwork done by Dustin Nguyen. They've done different collaborations with like the Batman tale, like fairy tale style Batman books before that I've seen. I actually read one of them and I really dug it. So they're doing Batman Tales Once Upon a Crime. They're staying with that vibe. It's really worked and it's a really cool take on it. We have Batman Overdrive written by Shay Fontana. We have Black Canary Ignite written by Meg Cabot. We have Dear Justice League written by Michael Northrope. Superman Smashes the Klan written by Gene Yang. We have DC Hero Girl Search for Atlantis written by Yancey Labette. And Super Sons written by Ridley Pearson. So they're covering a lot of different spectrums here, and again, they're early ages 8 to 12, so they're kind of like origin stories, just fairy tales. They're appealing definitely to that demographic. Not saying that adults can't check that stuff out, but again, it's this really used as a gateway to bring younger readers into the world of comics in a format that fits for them, which I think is great. And I've, again, being a grandparent, and I've talked about this a lot. Like I think about it so much because my grandson, he's 6 years old and he's like a sponge. He absorbs so much and he loves to read, and he loves his grandfather, and he knows that I'm into comics and stuff. And even from the time he was a small child, like anything I'm interested in, he kind of just gravitates to. I'm very close to him. And so I start thinking about these things that I would love for him to get into comics. So it's cool, like as this imprint gets established and I want to bring him into the larger world of comics, these are things that I can look for in a year or two to start getting for him to get him into comic books. So I really appreciate this as a grandparent, looking to hopefully see if my grandson might be interested in comics, because comic books have meant so much to me personally. I feel like this is an awesome step that the DC Zoom imprint offers for parents or grandparents getting their grandchildren and things or their children into the world of comics, bringing them into a format that fits the material that they're used to reading for like schoolwork stuff. If they're focused in bringing people from that world that have that sensibility, it's going to be tailored to fit that would meet their needs to pique their interest potentially into into comic books, which is totally fine by me. Next, we're looking at DC Inc., which is their young adult, and we have Harley Quinn Breaking Glass is going to be the first book I think that's going to be released, and I want to say these books are going to start dropping like in the fall of this year. We have Breaking Glass, Harley Quinn Breaking Glass. It's written by Mariko Tamaki, and the artwork is done by Stephen Pugh. We have Batman Gotham High, written by Melissa De La Cruz. We have Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale, written by Lauren Markle. We have Mira, and it's written by Danielle Page. We have Batman Nightwalker, written by Mary Lou. We have Teen Titans, written by Cammie Garcia. And Wonder Woman Tempest Tossed. It's written by Lori Hassel Anderson. So they have a nice slate of books, and they're going to be, kind of staggered how they're coming out. I think, if I remember correctly, from the live stream, that Breaking Glass is going to be the first one that's going to be released coming up this fall. It might be sooner than that. I can't remember because there was so many announcements popping back and forth. I didn't jot down the dates. I wanted to make sure I kind of got the creators that are attached to the projects written down to talk about with you guys. Next, we have the DC Black Label. Like I said, I feel like this imprint for me personally are the most interesting to me. Just the name talent they have attached really has my interest piqued. We have some of the projects they announced is Batman Damned, which is written by Brian Azzarello and drawn by Lee, how do I pronounce this correct, Bermejo. They worked together on the Joker original graphic novel they did a couple of years ago. They're doing this as kind of like their follow-up to it. Sounded really cool. I think Brian Azzarello, they did a little video, him talking about the project. It's very interesting. We have Batman Last Night on Earth, and this is written by Scott Snyder and artist Greg Capullo. This is kind of like their swan song to their epic Batman run that basically Scott Snyder explained that this is a culmination of their whole run together on Batman and how they're tying it up to bring it all to a conclusion. So I thought that's cool. I'm super interested. I have to get caught up on finishing up reading Scott Snyder's run on Batman, and I also want to check out his All-Star Batman. I picked up the first issue of that, and I really dug it as well. Scott Snyder's like he's my favorite DC writer, going on right now. Just loved his work on Batman, so I definitely have to pick this one up for sure. This is a must-buy for me. Next, they announced Wonder Woman, Historia, the Amazons, and it's written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, and artwork's done by Phil Jimenez. This is really interesting. They said, we've always seen the history of the Amazons, but not from the Amazons' perspective. That's the pitch on it. So this is going to be the whole history of the Amazons from their beginning to the inception of Wonder Woman, because we kind of know what the history is from there forward. So we're going to see all the stuff, and it's not quite what you think. So I really like Kelly's pitch for that has me interested, and I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan in the comics, going back to the Greg Rucka original run that he did, not the most recent one that I got in the book way back then. And I've been a good follower, reader of Wonder Woman comics, kind of staying in the loop since that point. Next, they have the other history of the DC universe. It's going to be written by John Ridley. Then we have Superman Year One. This is another one that I'm interested to check out. It's going to be written by Frank Miller, and it's going to be drawn by John Romita Jr. Just that team up alone has my interest peaked to kind of see where that might go. So I'm super curious about that, and this is Frank Miller's definitive take that he's always wanted to do on a Superman's origin story. So I'm really stoked on to see what we might get from it. So definitely really looking forward to that. And last but not least, we have Wonder Woman, Diana's Daughter, and this is going to be written by Greg Rucka. This one is a ways off because they don't have an artist attached to it yet as of the time they did the panel. So it's going to be curious to see what that shapes up to be. But Greg Rucka writing Wonder Woman, I'm all over it for sure. Next, we're going over to the Vertigo imprint. We're looking at they're relaunching the Sandman universe. Sandman is like epic. So many people love the Sandman comics. I've never read them. It just never was something that kind of caught my eye. I've read a little bit of Sandman when he's crossed over to the DC proper universe here and there, but I just never jumped into Sandman like that. But I know it's a really beloved comic. Everyone says you have to check it out. At some point, I feel like it's on my bucket list of books to check out at some point. But it seems cool that they're going back to this universe. It's going to be Neil Gaiman is overseeing it because it's his baby. This is his world that he created. But he has enlisted some creators and writers that he's super close to, and are letting them take it to a next level with launching 4 different books or new series. It's going to start with a one-shot called The Sandman Universe, written by Neil Gaiman, as a primer to then break out to these 4 books that are going to come out later. We have Books of Magic. It's going to be written by Kat Howard. We have the Dreaming, which is going to be written by Cy Spurrier. We have Lucifer, written by Dan Waters, and then we have House of Whispers, written by Nalo Hopkinson. This is, I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Nalo Hopkinson. So they're relaunching right now the Vertigo Sandman universe. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and what other books might be coming down the pipe. But this is going to be the main launch that they're doing for this 25th anniversary of Vertigo. Sandman is one of the most successful books on the imprint of all time. It only makes sense that that they commemorate it with something this huge, and it's gotten a lot of press. Neil Gaiman, he's a legend in comics. So it's cool they're going back to something that he's established so firmly and reinvigorating it for a new age. And fans have been clamoring for more, Sandman in that world for so long. I've heard so many people talk about it, so it's good seeing that they're going to do something with it. That seems really cool for the fans of that. And then we have the DC Universe proper. There's so much stuff going on where DC Metal is finishing up. We have the DC Nation Zero. It's going to be a one-shot coming out May 2nd of this year. It's only going to be 25 cents. It's a primer talking about the events that are going to be finishing out the year going into 2019, some of the big events. And we have Justice League No Justice, which is going to be a weekly miniseries written by Scott Snyder, artwork done by Jim Chung and Jorge Jimenez. We have Man of Steel, which is going to be written by Brian Michael Bendis. It's going to be a miniseries that I guess leads into what he's launching over with the Superman comic books. Then we have a Justice League proper ongoing series that's going to be written by Scott Snyder. We have Justice League Dark, written by James Tynion IV. It's a really close friend of Scott Snyder. They work extremely well together, and he's a good writer in his own right. So I'm looking forward to that. Then we have Justice League Odyssey, which is going to be written by Joshua Williamson and artwork done by Stepan Sejic. And all I can say about Joshua Williamson, this past weekend, I was reading his Image creator-owned book, Birthright, which is a phenomenal book. I had reviewed a couple of issues on a Cutting the Stack episode a while back, and I hadn't gotten back to the series, and I went back to finish up the first story arc. That book is awesome. So I'm really curious about this Justice League Odyssey, and just off the strength of what I've read with the Image book Birthright, I'm like all in on this so much. Then we have Teen Titans that going to be written by Adam Glass. We have Titans that's going to be written by Dan Abnett. Then we have Green Arrow that's going to be written by Julie Benson and Swana Benson. Artwork done by Javier Fernandez, and covers going to be done by Alex Maleev. That's going to be dope. And we have Hawkman that's going to be written by Robert Venditti and artwork done by Brian Hitch. So you can just see by like all these announcements, it's like a ton of stuff that is coming down the pike for DC, and I'm excited about it. I wish other publishers did these live streams and did them more consistently. As more come or pop up that I see, I will definitely cover it. I don't know, this is normally not a podcast you go to for like news information, but I dig what DC does with that. It makes it accessible. They have it on YouTube where you can go back. If you missed the initial live stream, you can go back and watch it. So it's good for me. Like when I see it, it's very interesting because they're doing different things. So they're and I feel like universe-wise, like they're more established, they've been more steady, where Marvel has just kind of like been all over the place, and it's constantly a reboot of a reboot of a reboot. And over in their comics universe, I feel like this is a little bit steady. They've been going, they've tweaked stuff here and there, and they've done, soft reboots within the New 52 and Rebirth and that kind of stuff. They've tweaked it along the way, but they haven't done another major reboot. They fixed things that didn't work as they went along, which I appreciate. So again, they definitely have my interest and have my eye trained on all these new things that they're looking to release down the pike. So that's all that's in this episode of Comic Books Savant Extra. Again, this is a format that I'm going to use for like in between the major stuff that I already have planned out in advance and things that I've already recorded that I know I want to bring to you that might pop up that I want to discuss and talk about with you guys. So I hope this was informative. You might not have known about the different lines or didn't know what they were in detail. So I kind of wanted to flesh that out a little bit and let you know what's coming down the pike and what to expect, over the next, year from DC, because it seems like they're doing some really cool stuff that's going to be very interesting. And I think they have something for everyone with, young adult to, even younger readers, the 8 to 12 with Zoom, with the original graphic novels like Elseworld Tales, the creator-owned stuff. So it feels like they're checking the mark. They're looking at the their demographic as a whole and trying to address a need for each demographic. And I feel like that's awesome. And I wish, that more publishers kind of did that. And so it seems like they're trying to make a step in the right direction as a comic book publisher. So I commend them for doing that. And definitely I'm going to be buying some of these books. Like I said, Black Label and like the DC Universe books. I can't imagine what a Scott Snyder Justice League book would be, but I'm ready to find out, and I will be getting that for sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you again next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. So you guys take care and have a good week, and I'll see you soon. Take care.